The East is rising, the West is declining, according to the narrative propagated by the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. In this video we will see that whether China is actually on its way to overtake the USA, or this is merely a propaganda. There is, however, a critical flaw in this narrative. China's economy may fail to overtake the US as it succumbs to the infamous middle-income trap. This is where the relative development progress of countries in relation to richer nations stalls, and is normally characterized by difficult economic adjustment and often by unpredictable political consequences. Historically, China's growth miracle has been remarkable. In the 30 years to 1990, the money GDP, the market value of goods and services produced in an economy, for China and the US in American dollar terms grew more or less in tandem at just over 6% and 8% per annum, respectively. But in the next 3 decades, China's GDP growth doubled to more than 13%, while America's almost halved to 4.5%. That pushed China's GDP up from 5% of American GDP to 66%. Access to world's largest, youngest, workforce in the world made China the perfect place to outsource manufacturing. Cheap labor rates and proximal access to quickly growing consumer populations in Southeast Asia and India made China one of the most lucrative business hubs in the world. It quickly overtook the United States in 2011 to become the world's largest manufacturer, driving growth in the nation's GDP by 40%. Yet, China's growth rush is now over, and the huge disparity in GDP growth has been eliminated. In the last few quarters, China's GDP has been growing at half the rate of the US. Although that discrepancy is probably unsustainable, America's estimated $7 trillion GDP margin over China in 2021 means that comparable rates of GDP growth in the future will sustain and even widen the margin. A Japanese think tank has recently extended the date when it expects China to overtake the US, from 2029 to 2033. Deferrals like this are now a feature, and there will be more. China's economic structure, moreover, is unbalanced. Productivity growth, closely associated with liberalizing reform, has stalled. China's development model urgently needs a makeover to avoid the middle-income trap. The longer it is delayed, the bigger the costs. China's leaders recognize that change is necessary, and Xi Jinping recently revived the slogan of common prosperity to mobilize the Communist Party and citizens around a strategy to reduce income and regional inequality, and improve living standards. Yet these political goals require precisely the kind of liberalizing, progressive and redistributive reforms to the economy to which Xi Jinping is opposed. He has pursued an increasingly ideological and totalitarian governance style in which the already dominant position of the party and state in the economy has been strengthened further. Perversely, he has created a contradiction in which even the CCP's expertise in dialectical argument may be of little help. The recent blizzard of new laws and regulations aimed at private firms and entrepreneurs, for example, is designed to nail down the party's control and bring the private sector to political heel. This is hardly compatible with the productivity growth and innovation on which China's lofty economic ambition depends. Recent crackdown on tech companies led to an exodus of businesses from China, looking for shelter in Singapore, Taiwan, and Australia. Chinese manufacturing has dominated over the rest of the world. This was driven primarily from optimized shipping lanes and extremely cheap labor rates by way of government subsidies. However, in recent times, Chinese manufacturing got hit by numerous unfavorable conditions. A mixture of long-standing issues like US-China trade war, and new challenges such as high tariffs, COVID-19, and increased geopolitical tensions have resulted in a mass exodus from Chinese manufacturing. Individual countries started eating up China's money. Vietnam, for example, made massive efforts to grab apparel manufacturing industry. Popular sportswear brands like Nike have rapidly reallocated a vast majority of manufacturing and footwear based to Vietnam, from China. Thailand has seen an increase of about 19.7% export volume from the US, specializing in automotive, food and beverage, and natural rubber manufacturing. Thailand also offers some competition to China in electronics manufacturing. Indonesia has also emerged to be a new player, appearing particularly attractive for companies seeking to relocate from China. President Jokowi of Indonesia has been incredibly keen to jump on attracting the Chinese manufacturing exodus by presenting close to $1 billion in federal investments through the creation of industrial parks in Java, Indonesia. India, another global economic superpower with a quickly expanding consumer base and previous manufacturing know-how, is also attempting to reclaim a spot as a world exporter. India already has a massive auto, food, and apparel manufacturing base. Apple recently released an intent to start manufacturing the iPhone 11 at plant in Chennai. Pharmaceutical companies are also turning towards Indian manufacturers for a more reliable production base. Most notably, AstraZeneca is now utilizing Indian contract manufacturer, the Serum Institute, to manufacture its COVID-19 vaccine. Mexico and Brazil have also grabbed the spotlight and gained huge manufacturing businesses and made quick bucks, thanks to China. China has been building roads that lead to nowhere. Even some newly built, entire cities are deserted. They were built just to provide people with jobs, but this is a very unsustainable model of artificially showcasing employment and growth, which can never last for long. Demography is another issue. While China's population will continue to grow for perhaps a decade, its labor force is already shrinking. China's official birth rate of 1.6 children per woman is one of the world's lowest, even as its population ages. The costs of social security, of caring for the elderly, will be enormous. Labor productivity must rise very quickly. Another demographic fact is worrying in terms of instability, gender imbalance. The old one-child policy reinforced cultural preferences, meaning that over the coming decades China will have between 30 million and 40 million men in the sexually active bracket of 20 to 40 years of age who will not find a partner. Their frustration may lead to unrest and instability. To be a superpower you need to have excellent military. New missiles and advanced platforms represent only a small part of the PLA's endeavor to achieve parity with its adversaries. High-tech new weapons are useful for enabling a military's lethality, but current military reform shortfalls hinder the PLA's ability to employ such hardware to achieve China's strategic political goals. Despite this meteoric rise in capability, China still lacks one thing the US and many of its NATO allies have: experience. Where China has not fought a major war since 1979, the US has been fighting conflicts in multiple countries since 2001. Although those conflicts have largely been against technologically inferior enemies, the decades of experience have given the US an institutional advantage. The US has more familiarity with the whole issue of operating under combat. Lastly, I would like to add a very important point that I personally feel about China's rise. In my opinion, to be a global superpower, a country needs to have a stature which attracts people. China lacks the kind of soft power that is an ultimate prerequisite to become a superpower. A regional power status can be achieved by economic progression and military advancements. However, a superpower is a lot more than just strong economy. Overtaking the United States is going to need a lot more than just narrative and propaganda. It requires policies to which Xi Jinping's China is opposed, and might just remain a mirage. I hope that you enjoyed this video on the future of China, and US's status as superpower. Leave a comment with your suggestions, or join the debate. Leave a like if you found this video interesting. Share it with others and do remember to subscribe, so that you are notified about our new videos. Till then, goodbye.